Another guest in the Informer studio, his name is Evan Thornley. Evan, welcome to the Informer.
George, thanks very much.
What I need to tell you is this man's been a disruptor all his life, even when he didn't know he was. You've had quite a journey from born in Sydney, being raised on the North Shore, of course, central coast of New South Wales, and then you saw the light, followed Dad to Melbourne. You possibly thought to yourself, I need to become a Western Bulldogs fan. But you ended up living in a place called Kew or Hawthorn. And I'm thinking, his GPS was a little astray, but it didn't stop you from doing what you wanted. You ended up at Scotch College, from there into uni. You've done a law degree, you've done a commerce degree, I believe, is that correct?
Yep.
But you haven't stopped there. You've been involved in student politics. You got into the Labor Party and you thought to yourself, these guys got some work to do. And then you got distracted doing some other things, which brings us to present day. What are you doing with yourself these days, Evan?
Well, it's funny you should ask, George, because whenever my friends in Canberra or Silicon Valley
ask what?
Say, hey, what are you up to these days? You'll be doing something, really interesting, right? And I say, oh, I'm a suburban real estate agent. And they go, what? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And I say, it's okay, there's a plan.
And there's part two.
Yeah.
But you're much more than that, are you not?
So what we're doing now is we think the whole ecosystem of the way housing works in this country is broken. And
it's flawed. It has been flawed from the beginning.
And has been for 100 years. And the only people that benefit from it are property developers, real estate salespeople, and banks. And everybody else loses. So we're sort of trying to build a business that might rewire that in a way that actually delivers better housing outcomes, better environmental outcomes, better social outcomes.
How does the company look and what's it do?
Well, I guess we're in the early stages of this, like any startup business.
Yep.
You've got to start somewhere, get good at something, and then if you earn the right to expand from there. So we started out trying to fix sort of one of the parts that everyone seemed to agree was broken, which was rental property management. Oh. So this started. We had a retreat down at my farm trying to work out which industry we'd go and disrupt next, and somebody said, "Well, I don't know about you guys, but I've never met a happy landlord, and I've certainly never met a happy tenant." And we all went, "Yeah, I agree with that. That's really broken. We should."
And what a time to
fix
do
it.
And what a time to do it with so much disruption going on around you as well.
Yeah, well, and it's funny, and we sort of set ourselves a task of, let's find an industry that hasn't had a new idea in 50 years that's swimming in cash and whose customers hate it. And the real estate industry sort of stuck three hands in the air and said, yeah, pick me. So, as sometimes is the case, it's fair to say, this has taken longer and cost more money than we initially anticipated.
Welcome to the world.
Yeah, unlike the other 13 startups I've done. But I think we're now getting somewhere with that, and we've learnt a lot. And so we're now in a position. Our business is called Longview because property is a long game.
Yes, it is.
We're a decent sized business in that industry now. We manage about 3,300 rental properties. We have client satisfaction ratings that are 60 percentage points above the industry benchmark. We have really good tenant satisfaction ratings. I don't know anyone else in the industry who even measures tenant satisfaction. We have both of those things because we have really happy staff in an industry where people are pretty unhappy in the industry. So
I was going to say,
we feel like we're getting somewhere now with that.
If you're notching up those milestones and those marks, to me it suggests that one, you've got on top of the challenges and you actually understand them and you're addressing them. Yeah? How many businesses, if they did that, would be much better businesses?
Yeah, well, listen to your staff and listen to your customers, right? And I suppose, I've tried to disrupt a lot of industries, and the formula that I think always works best is a marriage of open-minded but really experienced industry veterans.
Yes.
And then crazy people from the outside who are usually pretty clever and have a lot of other skills but don't necessarily know the industry.
Have a different perspective.
You need both. Yeah, you need a different perspective. You need other skills that may not be as strong in that industry, but you absolutely have to respect the people that have done the work, that have paid their dues, that really understand where the bodies are buried and how stuff works and how customers think and how staff think. And so the magic is in trying to build a team of mutual respect. Where the clever kids come in and actually have real respect for the industry veterans, and the industry veterans respect the fact that the clever kids have actually got some
and the tide rises
stuff.
and everyone improves.
And if you have mutual respect in that team, then you can do some really interesting things.
So what's next?
So property management will always be a core part of what we do because the real estate industry historically is owned by real estate salespeople who don't care about property management, and so that's why landlords and tenants are both dissatisfied. But as you do, when you get your hands dirty and you roll your sleeves up and you spend time with your customers and your staff, you start realising there's other issues. And so, it's quite startling to me. So, this is a small business right now. It's a medium-sized business. It's we'll do maybe $6 million in revenue in property management this year. Our clients, with the rental properties that they own, will miss out on $60 million this year of capital growth on those properties because they bought the wrong properties. So while we wanted to fix the rental property management side, and I feel that we're doing a great job there, and Kath and her whole team in my property management team are doing an amazing job, that ultimately is still not going to get our clients over the line as successful property investors. Mums and dads, they've worked hard, they've played by the rules,
so
they've put some money aside, they've gone to invest in property to hopefully have something to retire with or something to pass on to the next generation. And in a lot of cases, that dream is not coming true, and the reason it's not coming true is because nobody taught them how to buy good investment property, and various villains have tricked a lot of people into buying properties that make the villains wealthy, but not the buyers.
Correct.
So
the people
now
who
we're
spent
focused
the money
on
to get them there.
Yeah, and so now we're really focused on helping people buy the right property because that's actually the most important decision.
So this is part of Longview, huh?
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
So and it's always.
Will
strange.
you roll it? Is it a national concern now?
No, it's not. Look,
can you roll it nationally?
I hope and believe we will.
Okay.
But we've got.
Are we talking franchise? Or are we talking from Longview right across Australia?
Oh, look, I think we're really, really passionate about the culture that we have within our team and the values that we bring to our clients, and I'm not sure that you'd ever be confident you could franchise that.
Got it. So I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah,
you're trying to build it.
We're trying to do something that's so different and that keeps changing and evolving quite quickly. I think it'd be tough. It'd be tough for a franchisee to be swinging on the end of that if we change our minds every 6 months and start moving in a different direction.
Correct. And each market has its own peculiarities. Yeah. So you're required to do different things, different strategies.
So
very good.
So now, it's, as I say, it's always interesting when you get into a new industry that you don't understand, that some things don't make sense, and that's usually because you don't understand the industry, but sometimes it's because it doesn't make sense and it just happens. So one of the things that doesn't make sense. 95% of people will pay tens of thousands of dollars to a real estate sales agent to sell their property. Okay, well, maybe that makes sense. What doesn't make sense, the truth is the properties generally sell themselves, and the real estate agents get paid the most for signing you up to the real estate agent.
But isn't it the convenience? The fact that we really don't want to get down and get dirty? We're happy to... Simple, I'll sign, I'll pay you commission, whatever it is, and away we go.
Well, I think it's just fear too. It's like, this is a really important transaction, I better get an expert. And that's fine, I've got no problem with that. What I've got a problem with is, look, the difference between the sales agent doing a brilliant job and an okay job is often nothing, but sometimes, it might be tens of thousands of dollars, it's material. The difference between buying the right property and a mediocre to not so good property is the best part of $500,000 10 years from now.
And that's substantial.
Right, like that's huge.
Yeah.
And yet only 2% of people get any professional help in making sure that they buy the right property, whether it's the right home for their family or the right investment property. So I think buying well is, 10 to 100 times more important both for your quality of life and for your finances,
No doubt.
than selling well.
No
So it's weird that only 2% of people think that you might get professional help. So there's a small sort of boutique industry of buyers advisors, or they often call themselves buyers advocates, and I think most of them do a great job.
Yeah.
So we're now getting more and more of those people working for Longview. We're growing our own as well. And in addition to sort of people who've got, their, as Malcolm Gladwell will say, their 10,000 hours up,
Correct.
A good
Yep.
buyer's advisor has bought, 1,000 homes.
That's right.
Right, so they really, they know what to look
They
for,
know-
they know the problems
they know
that you
the
want to
subtlety.
see, they know how to negotiate.
Correct.
They hear about properties before they hit the market, all sorts of really valuable things.
Networking too.
All of that. So they've got tons of experience, but this is, again, our model of deep industry experience plus new thinking. So we're trying to bring as many of the terrific senior buyers advisors in the industry onto the Longview platform, and we've got the only data science team in the whole industry. So,
Which is your IT background.
right.
Yeah?
So and again, it's weird in an industry that has so much data, really good quality data, right? Like we're going through right now, we're doing a huge exercise. We've got 50 years of price history on 2.4 million individual properties in Melbourne.
That's substantial. 50-year history.
50 years of, right? And it's
We
all
know
there.
Melbourne before it was Melbourne.
All that price data is there. It's all
Correct.
correct, pretty much. I mean, occasionally it's almost all correct. And so, we're doing a huge exercise to work out, okay, where did people get capital growth and where didn't they? What types of properties, at what time, what factors, all that sort of stuff.
And the city has been changing in all that time.
Yeah, and all that time. And capital growth
Infrastructure.
in different types of property in different locations. And so we're unpicking all of that, obviously, so that we can get to a stage where we have predictive validity on where capital growth will be strongest in the future.
Which allows your I suppose your IT and future data, which is based on those elements, more accuracy.
Yeah, exactly. And you can build learning algorithms on these things. And
Okay.
so if you marry the data and the analytics with deep industry experience, then you've really got a really powerful offering.
Fantastic.
So the next thing we're doing after property management is really now focusing on helping people buy well, both their home and investment properties. And as we're doing more of that, we're realising that in many cases, buying a single investment property is probably not the ideal way to invest in property. It's not liquid, right?
Yeah.
You can only buy it or sell it. You
Correct.
can't sell 10% of it
No.
or buy 10% more.
Okay.
You said it has this black box called capital growth, and
Correct.
20 years from now you open the box and hope there's a good number in it. Hope you bought in the right place, hope you bought the right type of property. And so, we think that it would make a lot more sense for a lot of mum and dad landlords to own shares in a property trust that own thousands of properties.
That's very interesting.
So they could then buy and sell those shares at any time. They could buy more, they could sell some.
Leveraging. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
In Sydney, for example, over the last 10, 15 years, we've heard some amazing stories about communities coming together,
Right.
8 or 9 families,
Blocking
and saying,
them
you know
together
what,
and selling the
why
whole
don't
lot.
we sell all our homes in the area, and we won't get 1 million, we'll get 30 million.
Yeah.
Now, you're saying the inverse of that. You're bringing people who want to buy property, and you're saying to them, listen, let's use the collective power that we have, or we could have within us, to do so much more.
Yeah.
Now, that to me is smarts. I like it a lot.
Yeah, so that's
And this is all under the framework of the business.
Longview.
Longview, beautiful.
So we want to create an environment where people have the choice of buying an individual property if they want to, or try and help them buy a good one, but also of being able to buy into a group of properties that have been selected by people who
Blue
really
chip.
know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Got the data that suggests they're going to do well, that have diversity across different markets and can cope with the various changes in different economies, and all that sort of stuff, and have liquidity so people can buy and sell in or out as they need their money or whatever.
How do governments see this new strategy?
Oh, look, I haven't really talked to government about it, to be honest.
I can see them coming after and wanting to change the way we pay our taxes.
And
they're currently pressed
I'll come
harder
to
than
that
ever
in a minute,
before.
Because I think that what initially started as an idea that would be perhaps a better opportunity for property investors and landlords, I think has a range of other potentially transformative benefits for other parts of society, which I hope and believe governments will actually like. So I'll come back to that in a second.
Yeah.
The second thing we're focused on, though, is the housing affordability issues, particularly for younger people.
Yeah.
And
we're seeing right now,
it's huge, right?
Yeah.
But it's not generally. When I speak to lots and lots of young home buyers, first home, second home buyers, young families upgrading to a bigger home, and I say, what's your budget?
Do people do that, Evan? Because it's 2021.
Yep.
And in this lucky country of Australia, we still have mums and dads who want to see their children get into this fantastic home with all the mod cons from day one.
Yeah.
Now, is that reality?
Well, I think,
or are we in a
reality,
state of delusion?
The reality of the property market, a bit like the reality of the education market, is if you happen to be lucky enough to have a bank of mum and dad, or a bank of grandma and granddad, you get your foot on that ladder, whether it's in education or in property.
Yep.
And in many cases, if you, for whatever reason, don't have access to a bank of mum and dad, you don't.
Correct.
And
I think
that's fair.
That's the inequity that we're seeing.
Yeah. And
we're seeing
it's widening.
Truly,
right?
yes, the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
Correct. And is this
so? Most people.
And Longview has a way of balancing some of that, does it not?
Well, we think we do. So when I talk to most younger people about
the challenges ahead.
What's your budget, right?
Yep.
They might say 800,000, and I'll say, okay. What's the constraint on your budget? Because I know you can't get what you want for 800,000.
Yep.
Is it that the banks won't lend you more money, or that you don't have more deposit, more equity, right? In 80% of cases, it's the equity.
Correct.
Right? If you don't have a bank of mum and dad,
no.
How are you going to save up 20%? Right?
Oh, yeah.
The banks, particularly with the current interest rates, banks are throwing money at people.
Oh, yeah.
So we see it's clear that the problem is people don't have enough equity. And so we are going to put a second fund together which co-invests with people to give them the extra equity they need to buy the home they really need, and that they can afford if they could just get that deposit.
Fantastic.
So we're really excited about that. I think that will be...
Well, that's thinking outside the square. I love that.
Yeah, that'll be transformative, I think, for a lot of families to be able to get the home they really need earlier, or perhaps they would never have otherwise got it, and it will be a good investment in most cases.
I think Longview is a business that's got long legs, and I want you to come back.
Sure.
So we can talk a little bit more about what opportunities exist, and if people want information, how do they go about it and get it done? Is there a website that we can pursue? Is it Longview?
Sure. Longview.com.au. Yeah.
Bravo. Okay. Evan Thornley is the man in the studio. He's the man who has, as I said earlier, started his life as a serious disruptor. He didn't even know it was going to be the case, but he has. And he hasn't stopped thinking outside the square and allowing people to do something that, for a great many of them, has been beyond their reach. So if you can bring this collective and show that muscle and allow them to be even more astute with their decision making, that's got to be a good thing.
I hope so, yeah. And if I can just talk back to the other one for a second.
Sure.
The landlord side and the investment pool, right? Our thinking on that was driven by, as I say, wanting the mum and dad landlords to be able to get diversity and liquidity and better performance and buy better properties. But the more we thought about it and we looked at the way the current system works, we saw there was a range of other benefits. Tenancy in this country is a pretty rotten experience for most people. It's insecure. You can't be certain that you can stay when you want to stay. It's inflexible. You can't, if your daughter wants to paint the room, she can't do that. It's
the encumbrances frankly, are locked in, is what you're saying.
It's really a rotten experience in many cases. And we try and make it as good as we can, but the system is really not good.
So is there room to manoeuvre?
Well, I think there is. And it doesn't have to be that way. There's parts of Northern Europe, for example, where, sure, you don't have your name on the title, but it feels a lot more like it's your home.
Yes.
That you can be there for a long time, that you can make changes to it, that you don't have these sort of undignified kind of interventions from people. And so as we thought about it, we thought, well, if we set up this large pool of properties, not only is that better investment performance and better liquidity and diversity for the investors, but then really the customer is not the landlord anymore, they're the investor.
Yep.
The customer becomes the tenant. And if we're buying properties for that trust, we're buying the right properties that we want to hold for a long time because they will be good investments.
Yep.
And so we can then have much more secure tenure for the tenants. They can have much more flexibility about what they do with the property. If somebody wants to paint the room pink, knock yourself out. I want to get to a stage where, you know, a tenant's been in a property for 3 or 4 years, their kids are in school.
Have you lived in a body corporate?
Don't even start me on body corporate. We manage body corporates as well. That's a whole nother part.
That's a whole new animal.
I'll stay with houses for a sec. You know, I want to get to a stage where a tenant says, you know, we really love it here, our kids love the school, we love our neighbours, but we're having another child, we need another bedroom.
Correct.
And where we'd be able to go, no problem, let's work together on what that would look like.
Fantastic.
We'll put some plans together, we'll knock them up, we'll cost them, and we'll come back to you and say, sure, let's build you another bedroom like what you wanted, it'll be another $45 a week.
Yeah.
And we all agree on that, and we go do. That's what tenancy should feel like, in my experience.
Yeah.
So I think if we can build this pool of properties, it will deliver a better outcome for the investors, the mum and dad investors, but it will also deliver a real transformation in the tenant experience. It will also mean, because we would control those properties, most of them are older dwellings. It's great that people are building new 8-star environmentally sensitive properties, and all the impact investment funds are pouring money. That's all fantastic. It's 2% of the built environment.
I was going to say there's
98% of the built environment is the existing dwellings.
There's plenty of room for everybody.
So we should retrofit all of those. So if we were managing that process, we would retrofit all of those properties. We're going to hold them for a long time. We get solar on the roof. We get batteries in the garage. We get electric charge points. We could then offer the tenant a package deal of rent plus energy.
Which changes things yet again.
And we could really make a difference to the emissions profile through that. And then the third thing is, you know, we're always talking about the lack of social and public housing. And no matter how much governments do, and I'd say, for example, the Victorian state government at the moment is showing a lot of commitment there, which is terrific.
As have others in the past.
As have others in the past, but it waxes and wanes both with the economic situation and the political environment. But it's never enough. Everyone agrees it's never enough. Again, if we had a large pool, we could then cut a deal with government and say, okay,
an option place.
How about we put 10% of the portfolio into social and public housing? And then that will be, as the demographers would say, salt and peppered into the community, right? People would have access to the type and style and size of house that actually works for them rather than whatever's been built in public housing. And so then that pool would then be a tool for equalising.
Evan Thornley,
yes.
I've been listening to you tell this story about Longview. And you know what? Your whole life experience has led you to this business.
Yes, actually.
From day one.
Yeah.
And it's most interesting and stimulating to see that all those good practices and all those options and things that befell you on one hand and supported you on the other with your entrance to Scotch College, it could have turned a very different experience, but it hasn't. All these things have added to your makeup and I think have given you that excitement and that desire to put back and make things work a little bit better than they do. And Lord knows we know, if we look around us every day, plenty of places where we can start to improve things. Yes. Longview's the company. Evan Thornley's the man at the top there doing some wonderful things. Please come back and talk to us because we've run out of time this time. But look, there's so much scope and I think you're changing the way people should be thinking about looking ahead and investing in property.
Terrific. George, thanks for your
time. Thank you, Evan. My
Cheers.
pleasure.